Detecting hot topics in Search Console data. So this session is for all those who prefer their inspiration to come from data instead of creativity. Sometimes it's really difficult to find the next big topic to write about after you've exhausted all your options. So this hopefully provides another inspiration option for those who are seeking ideas for hunting down those great topic ideas that weren't immediately obvious. So let's talk about the future tail very briefly. Everyone's familiar with the head terms, big terms, and then the long tail, very long queries, and then most people forget about the future searches, future terms, things people often neglect and ignore. And this is something that I like to spend time on thinking about, discussing, and then trying to determine what is it that people will be looking for even before they do know themselves. Because this pool of content is quite big. So, how do we guess what people will search for in the future? Well, let's take Gardener Dan. He has a nursery where he sells plants, and one of the plants he sells are bromeliads. There they are, right there in the photo. And Dan thinks that his customers are looking for topics like buy bromeliads, bromeliads shade, bromeliads full sun, can bromeliads survive winter, what is the origin country of bromeliads, do bromeliads make seeds or do you propagate them vegetatively? Now, that's what people think. Not just business owners or their staff or people writing for the blog or even digital agencies. They think they know what the topic should be and then they go start creating content schedule and all these complex things with ignoring what user opinion about the whole thing is. So what I like to do as my inspiration is start a user survey and I show them the picture and I ask, describe this plant. Or I ask them, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see this plant? So this is an open-ended survey with the photo shown and they can type in whatever they want. And by the way, if you want, you can take a look at the article I wrote about this process a little bit more in depth. So the user data will show surprising things we didn't think about. In this case, we've got jungle, alien planet, agave, Mexico, tropical, does it eat flies, is it dangerous? It reminds me of this garden I visited on my trip to Australia. This plant looks like cactus. I can see the spikes, but it has the appearance of aloe vera or some other type of succulent. Wrong answers, not even close, but that's what people think. And that's really, really important because it does give us new LSI vectors, new directions to explore and investigate. And this goes beyond digging through tools and typical methods of research. This goes straight from the potential customer. So what do we have here in this pool of keywords now? We've got the vibe, tropical, jungle. Destinations, we've got Australia, Mexico, and potentially South America. And we've got some emotional triggers there. Travel, fear, adventure. We've got resemblance. So this looks like other plants, although it's not. It looks like a succulent, aloe vera, Venus flytrap, eating flies, which it doesn't. Negative connotations. Is it spiky? Is it dangerous? And some new association, something that hasn't quite crossed my mind either. Aliens, science fiction. Does that plant look like it's about to eat you, or does it look like it comes from Venus? I don't know, but that's what people said. So the next step in my process is really to start looking for outliers in our data, because having user input alone is perhaps only half the way there in finding out new and exciting topics to write about. So most of you should be familiar with Search Console and all the data it provides. So next to each keyword in Search Console, you have the rank it appears on, the position. It has the click-through rate, it has the number of views, and the number of clicks people have made. So if you're dealing with very large websites, this can be richly populated with a lot of useful data. And this is something that I use to make good decisions when it comes to content. So in the table in front of us, we see cumulative data of all the keywords appearing on a certain position. And this gives us the opportunity to calculate the average CTR for a keyword that appears on certain positions. So as we can see in the table, on position 1, the click-through rate is around 26%. On position 2 is close to 14. Number 3 is close to 9, and so forth. So down at position 10, we've got 3.33% click-through rate. And this is not statistic made up or industry standard, or this is site very own average. So this is the data from the very own site you're analyzing. And we know that our data is statistically valid in this case. We've got a lot of instances of keywords appearing on position 10, 99 keywords. And those keywords have, in this particular case, appeared 323 times. So we know that the percent click-through rate of 3% is pretty accurate. So when you plot these values across a graph, you will see a curve similar to this. Curve that goes similar to like a long tail keyword graph representation, appears to be a sign of good statistical sample. And here's what we're looking for. We're looking for queries and pages that have had unusually high or unusually low click-through rates. And we're trying to find out why. Is it because of something interesting that they've had in the snippet, or is it because it was a particularly interesting topic that resonated with the audience? So we look at this 5% case, which was a search for types of spiky plants. And then we've got plants harmful to dogs, which was a negative CTR. Well, fewer people clicked on it than we anticipated. And then we've got the best spiky privacy plants. We've got thorny security hedge for sale, dangerous plant for children, difficult to climb plants for fences. Now, if we split those up and we ignore the negatives and we focus on the positives and sort this, we start to understand whether there are any patterns there that contribute to higher click-through rate. Burglary. What? How is this term related to plants or a nursery or a gardener Dan trying to sell plants online? Well, if you observe the difficult to climb plants for fences query, it had a 25% above expectation click-through rate and nothing interesting to show in the search results. So the hypothesis here, by observing this data and processing this data, is to see if it's because this topic resonated with the audience. Burglary, trespassing, defensive, deterrent. Let's expand those a little bit. Deterrent, intruder proof, security, defensive landscaping, barrier, burglary, thieves, trespassing, ornamental, fast growing. Now if we do a quick Google search, burglary proof plants, we see an interesting article popping up, and it earned itself a featured snippet. Best plants to deter burglars. Blackthorn, common holly, creeping juniper, etc. So these guys seem to have done well, and this topic seems to resonate within their audience. So if we investigate the just visual overview of the search results, we can find sources of interesting content inspiration and ideas in the people also ask section. And we're seeing a lot of visual data, images for burglary-proof plants. Plants are a visual thing, so Google recognizes that and starts showing more visual representations in their search results. Even what you would consider a plain results now gets a little image on the side because it's useful to the users. Now finally, we've got the related searches and plants to deter trespassers and their images in the bottom there. Now, this informed us, but we're still not sure what to do with this information. We think we might have a hypothesis, but I think the next important step for us to do is to do the query to URL mapping so we can understand which queries brought an extra click-through rate to which URL and start basing our decisions on the basis of cumulative CTR boost. So now, once we understand that the article B was the one that wins and the other article has the lower priority on our list of things to investigate, we are ready to look at the URL attractiveness score. So we start looking a little bit deeper, a little bit more into the actual content of the URL. And the first thing to look at is, because that's the first thing that users look at, is the title of the article, because that's what's in this search snippet. So if we start analyzing attractiveness patterns, we focus on the titles. We scrape all the titles for all our content, and we observe the impact certain keywords or numbers or symbols or sentence structures may have had on the ability of these results to attract more clicks than you would expect. Why? Because that indicates a particularly interesting topic. Now, in this case, we've got article B and article E. Both have abnormally high click-through rate, way above what you would expect. And an interesting pattern appears. Police, word police is mentioned in both. I guess police gives authority to something. And those who are looking for plants to defend their household or make their fence hard to climb might actually want to know what police actually recommends, because it's potentially a credible advice. So we're finding the first term of influence, police. Now, one thing that I also like to do is do a few search queries until I find the one with a low result confidence. And in this case, I think it represents a huge opportunity. Now, I've searched for ornamental security plants because in my prior research, I've seen that people are looking for secure plants, plants that are making hard for somebody to break into the house or climb the fence or trespass. But people also want those to be pretty, to decorate their garden, to add value to their household. But if we join those two queries together, ornamental and secure, we're starting to see results that are a little bit shaky in what Google feels is the quality of the pages. So they've shown the pages in the results, but they don't feel like it's the best choice. But it's kind of like saying, this is the best we could do. Here's some results. How to stake your plants, Bunnings Australia. Make sure you secure the tie to the stake and not the plant. That's definitely not the user intent for ornamental security plant. Huge opportunity here, because if people are looking at these types of results and you just presented one with the exact user intent, pretty plants that are good for security, you're going to beat, nobody's going to click on. Bunnings is going to have minus 20% click-through rate, and yours is going to have at least 20 plus. Let's see the next result. 13 of the best privacy plants in Australia. So this one is not too bad. It's privacy plants and they're flowering, which means it's pretty, but they're excluding the security part. So they're giving us privacy but not security. Now, this is very interesting. If you want to scale your research like that, you may or may not want to scrapes Google's results to see what's going on in there. So these are the key signs you're looking for. Google's lack of confidence in the results, and once they start omitting certain search terms to match the results better to the user. So, second term of influence that I found was ornamental. Another source of ideas was at the very bottom of the search results page, which gave us some additional ideas. People seem to be looking a lot for fast growing. So what's going on there? They want the official source like the police. They want plants that defend their household. They want those to be pretty, decorative, architectural, ornamental. They want them to grow fast. They're impatient to get the results going. So they want to see what plants can go very quickly. Now I think this is already enough stuff to get us thinking about an actual experiment. Let's put all our ideas to a test. So what do? In this case, we'll be testing content variants for single user intent based topic. User intent here is pretty, secure, fast-growing plants. Which ones are they? Where do I buy them? Are they easy to grow, etc.? But in this case, we'll have multiple variants of the article and seeing which one performs better to understand what actually attracts that click, what appeals to people when they see a piece of content. So after much deliberation, research, all sorts of tools, I've come to 3 potential solutions. These are my topics. Fast-growing, ornamental plants, police want you to plant. Not bad. Second, don't want a security dog? Plant some bromeliads. Now I'm tying it back to the plant that I wanted to sell on my online store, right? And the third one is also very directly related to the product, bromeliad. Pretty, low maintenance, and tough on burglars. So we've got those main terms, pretty, police, security, low maintenance, etc. all embedded in there. So what do we do next? Okay, so once you launch the articles and when they're indexed in Google, you start measuring each URL and you want to monitor the metrics for that URL, which are the CTRs. So you monitor the CTR per rank. This is the key thing. You can't monitor it overall because the CTR will be very, very different per position. And during your experiment period, which might be 7 days, 14 days, a month, your results might move around. So you want to make sure that you've split your experiment and your testing per rank. So in the graph here, we're seeing in blue the first article, in black the second article, and in gray the third article. So once we observe their behavior and users' choices on those articles based on what users feel they present in the results, we can find our winner, which in this case is the third one, bromeliad. Pretty, low maintenance, and tough on burglars. Which is a little bit disappointing because I was really confident that throwing police in there was going to make a really big difference. But apparently, with my own test, it shows that for one reason or the other, this title or this topic wins. So we can see how the CTR delta, or the difference from the expectation, is actually quite different on every position. And for some reason, on position 3, our CTR boost was 10%. And you can also notice on the last position, we didn't have any of the competing results in the game. So the value there is infinity. And on the 9th position, the bromeliad, pretty low maintenance and tough and burglars type content didn't appear at all. Our next experiment is a little bit different in a sense that we're not competing variants of different pages. We are just doing the user discovery based content with multiple themes. So previously discovered new LSI vectors, vibe, destinations, emotional triggers, resemblance, negative, and new associations. We split them up a little bit and we try to bring some topics to surface. Alien plant series. Meet bromeliads. Bromeliads, out of this world plants. What planet is that? Instant tropical vibes, just add bromeliads. Turn your garden into a tropical jungle with this one plant. A little bit clickbaity. Miss Travel? Garden tips for a staycation that doesn't suck. COVID topic, obviously. International vibe in your garden? Buy these plants now. Obviously, bromeliad being one of them. New to gardening? Here's one plant that's impossible to kill. I just threw something in there that wasn't immediately obvious. Low maintenance plants. So let's pick one. Turn your garden into a tropical jungle with this one plant. And we run the test on this article alone. So each article we test, we don't run it against the other variants because we don't have the as many variants as we did before. We're running it against the average of the site. So we're looking at the behavior of this article as it appeared in different ranking positions over our testing period, which was 30 days. For position 1, the average CTR was 6% higher. On position 2, 3% lower. Position 3, 11% higher, and so forth. So this actually tells you whether once you sum it up and you understand the average boost across all the positions. Now when you're counting the boost per position, make sure you include the number of times it has appeared on that position as well. Because if something has appeared on position 3, boosted by 11%, but only once, and something that has been -3 on position 2 but 100 times is obviously a lot heavier factor than something appearing just once and boosting your CTR. That's something you should keep in mind when making decisions whether a piece of content was truly extraordinary or not based on users' choices in search results. So some of the best practices when performing analysis and testing process like this is the key for this is sample size. You need minimum 10 queries per ranking position for basic accuracy. And ideally, if you run a very large website, full confidence statistically at 100 queries per position, there can be no mistake about what an average click-through rate will be per position. So, sample size. Second one is you need to segment your CTR statistics. And one of the most important ones is to remove the brand because branded terms have very high click-through rates and they will skew your averages and make the whole point, the whole purpose of the exercise meaningless. So you're running the branded ones separately to non-branded. You could also break it down, especially if you run a very large website or an e-commerce website, into product content, or product categories, or blog content. Very different user behaviors on those. And then finally, any pieces of evergreen content, research, white papers, data, DIY stuff, and so forth, manuals. Now, the next thing to be careful of when doing this testing is to check the search result pages for changes during testing. Let's say you're running a test for a period of 30 days. Snippets can enter and exit the search result page during that time and shake things up a little bit. Google can rewrite the titles and descriptions that you put in there, messing up with your experiment. They can throw in special features. They can come in and out. Knowledge panel, feature snippets, rich snippets, video news images, and so forth. So that's something to be mindful of. Ahref actually has a nice ability to export search results, and you can see where there's absence or presence of these special search features in a nice spreadsheet you can overlay over your own data. And another thing, of course, is to be mindful of behavioral changes due to seasons, events, or holidays. Now, the process that I've described during this presentation can be streamlined. I have a tool that I use personally, and it's free for everyone to jump on and check it out. It's u.algoroo.com, where you can authorize yourself in Search Console and draw all the data in and run CTR projections, which will give you the already familiar CTR curves that inform what the averages for CTR are for each individual website. So that wraps up the official part of our presentation. We're going to jump into a little bonus section for those who have a little bit of extra time to check it out. Bonus content contains something that ties in with um, the what to do with content. And one of the key things, once you start producing the content based on all these great ideas that you've had, is that nobody reads anything. People are mostly skipping and scanning. So 40% of the respondents on the survey that we did said yeah, they read most but may skip some parts. So 40% of people will skip part of the content. Now, 35% say I skim through looking for key items. Only 16% read everything in full. And there's an 8% who just read the headline. That's enough for them. So these are the actual reasons when you ask them, why are you skipping? Well, they say, I'm impatient to find quick answers. I found the text to be too long to bother reading. I lost interest in what I'm reading. Poor layout and text formatting. Difficult or confusing read. So the language is too difficult. And I don't trust the website. There are some other reasons there. So I did a follow-up with this just to see if it's still current. And the new data shows the same thing. 61% people said I skim, scan, or look for items of interest, and 38% said I read content in full. So we might see some improvement in those who declare to read it in full, but there's still a huge amount of skippers. What does that mean for your content? Well, I would say it puts micro posts in favor of mega posts. So if you have a very large topic to cover, I would recommend to break it up into smaller units and interlink them. Next thing is if you have word salad type wall of text type content, people are just going to be discouraged to read that. So I actually went and fixed this particular article, but just getting to the point and summarizing it, condensing it, and having more lean piece of content in there. And good news is the journalists have been doing this for a very long time. They follow the principle of inverted pyramid, and they put the most important information, the most salient points at the very top. So they almost start with a conclusion, and they go into most important details, and then all the secondary and tertiary information goes at the very bottom. Now, I experimented with web-friendly format because we know that if you condense the information, there may not be enough for those who want to drill into it. Typically, you would supplement that by providing a link out to some other website that expands, or a page that expands the concept. But the problem with that is that people also said that they had interruptions. And linking out, clicking outward, is an interruption of your reading experience right now. So I actually created a concept called hypertext that opens up content instead of an external link. It just does accordion style expand of the content piece that you wish to expand on, while user is not interrupted and they stay on the page while reading. Now, one thing I do have to mention, I've covered a lot of the user behavior signals and user content consumption on Moz and Whiteboard Friday, but I actually did an experiment at this very page, and I duplicated this page, and I didn't hide the content from the users, and actually performed better in search results. So there seemed to be a little bit of a conflict as to user experience, best user experience, and content structure. So some more pieces of latest research as part of the bonus material. I asked people why they read online, and the main reasons were convenience, news, learning, entertainment. So we surveyed 1,000 Australians in October 2019, and most of them said it's convenient. I like to check news, get my information, learning, entertainment. Very few were saying, boredom or researching special interest, but that's something to consider. And again, deeper research in the link below. Now we have very little time to grab people's attentions with our content. So um, as self-declared, more than half said they spend 1 to 5 seconds on search results. They click on something and move on. So I think it's really, really essential that we consider the titles of the content pieces that we create, because they will reflect in the search results as well. Um, and one other factor that decided on how people consume content and whether they're going to continue reading it was whether they believe the content is actually trustworthy. So I compiled a little list for you to go over and understand what it is that people believe the content trust factors. And we've got content properties that go into the basics: spelling and grammar, language, providing clear answers, title of the page, usefulness, and factual trusted writing. So those are the types of things that add to the content trust. So in summary, quick tips: you've got the greatest content idea and you're ready to publish that piece. Try this. Start with a conclusion. Minimize all interruptions during the reading process. Enable scannability and be appealing. Offer value, build trust, and engage your readers. Thank you very much.